Hey everybody, Sharon here from VidGamiac.com. Here we are today back in Grounded, grabbing the Mom Genes achievement. This is to defeat the Broodmother. The Broodmother is going to be the current build's end boss. So the bare minimum in order to fight her is to be able to build the oven, which is going to require the chip that you get at the end of the Haze Lab. And obviously to get to the Haze Lab, you're going to need a gas mask. You can either build your own or you can use the one that you unlock at the end of the Hedge Lab. Whatever the case, just make sure you equip it. You equip it like any other piece of head armor, and then once you have it equipped, you should be able to pass over to the west side of the map in relative safety. So just make your way through the haze until you get to the bottom left of the map where you should find the Haze Lab. Make your way through the lab and then do the little dungeon crawl quest until you get to the last room. In the last room, you should find the chip that you are going to take back to BURG.L over at the Oak Tree Lab. You are going to give it to him like any other chip, and then basically it should allow you to buy the blueprints you need in order to get the stuff you need to fight the Broodmother. So basically, head back to the Oak Tree Lab, make sure you cash it in, and then make sure you buy it using your applied science, which is going to be this game's form of currency. It should be towards the bottom of the list, labeled as advanced production buildings. This should give you access to the most important thing, which is going to be the oven. So once you have this, you of course are going to need the actual ingredients to build an oven. First ingredient we are going to go for is going to be in the southeast pond. Make sure you head over to the left bank, equip a shovel, and then you want to look for these brown patches. Make sure you dig them up, and that should give you clay. Once you have the clay, we should have one of the base ingredients. We are going to then have to find some bombardier beetles. Best place I recommend grinding them out is going to be this bottom left corner between the original map and the berry bush. So you should find some bombardier beetles hanging around this rock right here, and you should be able to fight them with relative safety since you are pretty far away from the poison gas. So make sure you take them out. You are going to need both of the beetle's two types of drops. Its common drop, which are going to be the bombardier parts, as well as its rare drop, which is going to be the boiling gland. These are both going to be important components for our upcoming builds, so make sure you stock up the best you can. So I recommend killing maybe 2 or 3 beetles, and you should be more than good enough unless you have bad luck or something. Next part we are going to go for is going to be on the other side of the map in the upper left. You want to make sure you go to this area right here. You should see this row of rocks right here, which leads up to the northern wall. What you want to do is you want to make sure you take the ramp up and then just jump your way across. And this is how you are going to get on top of the wall to the under construction area. In the current build of the game, there is going to be no content here. It's just going to be a giant field of grass, which also is going to mean that there are no dangerous enemies up here. So feel free to travel here with relative safety. But once you get on the wall, just make sure you hang a right. You want to keep going right, and basically you're trying to head up to where that barbecue pit is. You can cross the safety tape and then basically hug the wall until you can find a safe place to go up. Don't worry too much about enemies. The only enemies that can appear here are going to be bees, which aren't going to bother you unless you bother them first. But you are basically trying to find a gap in this slope right here, and then you should be able to climb up, and then you should be at the top of the wall now. Just make sure you follow the wall along until you get to the barbecue pit, and then you should find the next ingredient. You are going to need the hammer in order to harvest it, and it is going to be the charcoal. So just make sure you use the hammer on the smoldering bits, and you should stamp it out, and you should add the charcoal chunks to your inventory, which is going to be the last ingredient of the oven that we need. So just make sure you do that. There are going to be 2 chunks here. You only need 1, but might as well grab both while we're at it. And then we're going to head back to base and then set up our oven. So just make sure you set up the oven. It is going to require clay, the charcoal, and the boiling gland that you get from the bombardier beetle. So just make sure you craft it in your crafting menu. Head all the way over to storage and utilities, and then head all the way down to production. It's going to be 10 clay, 1 charcoal chunk, and 4 boiling glands. Pop it down somewhere and then add the components. And then once it's up, we are going to be ready for our next step. So the Broodmother is going to require a very specific summon item that can be found back at the berry bush area. You want to make sure you go to the far side of the Hedge Lab. It's going to be the little entrance right here that has a ramp that takes you up to the upper part next to the bird bath. So just make sure you take that up. It's way faster than going the other way. Once you get to the higher elevation of the bush, you are going to be right here at the other end of the Hedge Lab. Make sure you head over to this tree directly in front of you and then take the mushroom staircase up. There should be a ton of orb weavers nearby, but you should be more than powerful enough to take care of them. Just staircase up the mushrooms and you should be back in the bush. So what you want to do is you want to make sure you jump into this tube to get into the lab, and then we're going to keep following this along until we get to this open room with the fork in the road. Make sure you take the left fork, which should take you higher up, and then you should be in this room with the glass pillar in the middle. From there, take the left path, and this should take you further up, and then just keep following the tube until you get to the last room, which is going to be the supply room. From here, you want to take the zip line across, but you want to drop down at the first stop, which is going to be the tree branch. Once you drop down here, you want to make sure you turn to the right and then follow the large branch until you get to here. There's going to be a small partition of the lab up to the left. You want to head that way. You don't have to go in. Instead, you want to take the right path and then just drop down onto the hallway we were just at. You should be on the rooftop of it, basically. And you want to take this until you get to the supply room. This is the top of it where we ziplined from. Then you want to make sure you drop down. You want to catch yourself on this leaf from the upper left side. Drop down again to get to the lower part of the lab, and then you should be on this tube. Make sure you turn this way, and you want to head left and then around to get onto this tube. Duck under this branch, and then you can see right here there should be a mushroom staircase on this branch. This is where we want to get going. So make sure you drop down there and then take the staircase up, and this will allow you to go higher up into the bush. From the fork, take the left path and then just follow this along here. Then you should be in this big open area. This should be the upper leftmost part of the berry bush. And then you should notice the observation module right over there up to the left. So just make sure you follow the branch up. You have to do a jump here. Be very careful. You are very high up and will die if you do fall off. But follow the branch until you get to the observation module. It should automatically open up. Make sure you jump inside, grab the applied science. There are a few things of interest in here, including a tape as well as a scab collectible. But the reason we are here is to grab the Broodmother research notes. This is going to give us the recipe in order to make the summon item for the Broodmother. Then we are going to need the ingredients to fill out said recipe. So we might as well grab them on our way home. First thing you are going to need are some ladybug parts. If you don't have any left over from any other achievements, just make sure you take out any ladybugs you see along the way. Ladybugs can appear anywhere on the map, so just make sure you kill them and then gut them for their parts. The next thing you need are going to be some thistle needles. Thistles are going to be this plant right here. They're going to have a kind of purplish flower up top. Go up to one and then jump over the leaves and then just grab the needles off of the stem. You use these primarily to make arrows. However, you do need some for this recipe as well. So just make sure you stock up on some thistle needles. You can grab a bunch if you want to build some arrows for the last fight. So keep that in mind. You are going to need 2 ladybug parts, 2 bombardier parts. You should have some left over from earlier, and 1 thistle needle. Bring all of those over to your oven and then just pop them in. Once you have the Broodmother BLT recipe, you should be able to craft it. So just let that cook, and then while that is cooking in the background, we are going to do the rest of the prep work. So first thing I recommend doing is going to be to grab a specific mutation. It's going to be called Mithridatism. It is basically going to work as an anti-venom perk. So to unlock it, what you have to do is you have to defeat 5 wolf spiders. If you haven't unlocked it already, I will give you 5 easy locations you can find some quick wolf spiders to kill. You should be more than powerful to take them out. First location is going to be the upper left ramp in order to get over to where we got to the barbecue pit. Then there's going to be a few locations over by the oak tree. There should be 1 wolf spider outside right here in this kind of webby looking area next to the roots. Make sure you take it out. Again, you should be more than strong enough to take care of this A-OK. Then there are going to be some wolf spiders inside the tree. The entrance is going to be on the right side, so make sure you head on inside. There may be a couple in here, so be a little careful and don't get too overwhelmed. So just make sure you take them out. And then this is where I happen to get my 5th wolf spider, so this is where I unlocked the mutation. So there it is. And then if you still need wolf spiders, I have 2 more locations. There's going to be the one on the bench. It's going to be in this partition. This is the one we used for the actual wolf spider achievement, so make sure you reuse it if you still have him here. So make sure you take him out. And there should be one over here by the Yoked Girth Head landmark. It's going to be a spider cave. Head on inside. For me, I very rarely see him in here. He's usually out patrolling the area, so just make sure you look around. But there's going to be 5 easy locations. Whatever the case, once you have the perk unlocked, we are going to take care of our inventory. Make sure you have some pretty high spec gear as well as having it all repaired all the way. So, bare minimum, I recommend having the mint mallet as your weapon, as well as a pretty high tier bow. So, the insect bow is going to be pretty solid for this one. Make sure you fully repair your armor. I recommend using the ladybug armor since it has really high defense. Stock up on arrows and then stock up on building materials. Make sure you have a bunch of clover leaves and sprigs so you can set up your base. And then I also recommend having some granola bars handy, and then also making sure you set up some smoothies. So the 2 best smoothies are going to be Boost Juice, which should increase your stamina, as well as Liquid Rage, which should increase your damage output. So Boost Juice is very easy to make. It's just mushrooms, acorn bits, and aphids. And then the Boost Juice is going to be a little more complicated. It's going to be larva spikes, spider fangs, and ant mandibles. Make sure you apply the muscle sprouts that you got from the pond lab to make it the beefy version. This should increase their effects quite substantially, and then I recommend having about 10 or so before hopping into the fight. Nonetheless, once you have all your inventory specced out, just make sure you assign stuff that you use frequently to the hot slots. And then once you have everything ready and are ready to start the fight, make sure you grab the BLT out of the oven, and then it's time to actually find the Broodmother. The Broodmother is going to be located at the berry bush, so we're going to have to travel there. So bring all your stuff along and then head over here. From the paperclip that takes you into the bush, we are going to walk you along how to get there. Make sure you take the branch up and then hang a right. You want to take another right once you get to this fork, and this should take you to the field research station. You can set up a temporary base here for now, but from there you want to take a right again. Keep following this branch. You're going to head up towards the juice box. So just make sure you follow along through here. There are spiderlings along the way, so be a little careful to not have them knock you off. But anyways, you're going to eventually get to this mushroom staircase. Make sure you climb up it and then keep heading towards the juice box. You can pick up some juice along the way to fill out your hunger, thirst, and health. So make sure you heal up. And then basically you're going to head in this direction where you are going to use this zip line. Use the zip line to get across and then head further into the bush. Once you land, you want to make sure you hang a left. Make sure you follow the branch in and around, and eventually you should get back onto this big branch. Make sure you turn right, and then keep heading down here until you hit a dead end. Once you hit the dead end, make sure you hang a left, and then you should notice the first bit of the Hedge Lab right there. This should all be familiar since we already beat the Hedge Lab, so we're just retracing our steps more or less. So just keep following the big branch until you get to this dead end. Drop down the mushroom staircase, and then you should get to the second zip line. Take this across, and then you should be in front of the landmark, which is going to be the flying disc. This is where the Broodmother fight is going to take place. Drop down, clear the disc of any spiderlings that give you any trouble if you really want to, but basically we are going to set up camp right here. So we are going to just slowly make our way down. If you turn slightly to the right, you might notice this cave that is full of spider webs. This is where the Broodmother's den is going to be. So climb up the branch, and the last place you can set up camp is going to be at the end of this particular branch. Make sure you build the lean-to, and then make sure you set it up outside. Make sure you set your spawn here just in case. I also recommend making a manual save at this point in case we do mess up or take too much damage. We don't want to redo our setup or anything. So make your way through the opening tunnel. Once you get into the main chamber, it's time to do our last preparations. We are going to basically set up our mutations, so head into status. Obviously, the first perk you want to set is going to be Mithridatism, which is going to give us immunity to poison. As for the other two, they're going to be up to personal preference. Personally, I like going with Barbarian, which is going to increase my club damage, and then Buff Lungs, which is going to increase my stamina, so I can swing the weapon without getting tired quickly. So once you have all that, you are basically going to head to the upper left of the den. You are going to insert the BLT into this layer of eggs right here, and that should cause the Broodmother to come in from the top. Make sure you down one of each of your smoothies. This should increase your damage output as well as increase your stamina. Start out with your bow and arrow and then start picking pot shots as it's approaching you. Once it gets close enough, switch to the mint mallet and then start laying the smackdown on it. Thanks to all of our smoothies, we should be able to do a ton of damage and swing with reckless abandon. Eventually, once you run out of stamina, just back up to regain your bearings. While you're at it, you can pick it off from far away with the bow, but then whenever you feel ready, just rush back in with your mint mallet and then start laying the smackdown. Keep in mind, either one of your smoothies will also heal you, so just make sure if you take too much damage, go hide in the corner, and then just make sure you quickly down a smoothie to pick yourself back up and also refresh out whatever perks they gave you. Then all you have to do is just slowly whittle down the Broodmother. It's a pretty long fight, but just be a little patient with it. Keep in mind, as the fight goes on, the Broodmother is going to spawn a bunch of spider minions, starting off with spiderlings and then eventually evolving into Orb Weaver Juniors. So you might want to pick up the pace a little, especially when the minions come into play, because you don't want to be overwhelmed by them while trying to focus on damaging her. So if you're lucky, you should be able to get her dizzy thanks to our mint mallet. Take that time to keep swinging or fill out your stamina, and just keep laying the smackdown until you defeat her. If you ever are in a pinch, just back up and then start laying in shots. The bow and arrow is a great way of backing up while avoiding the spider minions while still doing damage. Just keep backing up and circling around her while still doing damage with your pot shots. Eventually, once you manage to defeat her, you should defeat the only boss in the game so far, as well as get some pretty good loot. But more importantly, the reason we were here was to get this achievement. 100 gamer score for beating her, and that's all there is to it.